Hello, Danae. Hello, everybody.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Jeff Kirschner, and I'm the founder and CEO of Litterati. And we are a global litter intelligence platform, and we're powered by people. The way it works is very simple. It starts with a photograph. We've built an iOS and Android application that anybody can download and instantly join this ever-growing community and become part of the solution. And we like to say it's simple yet sophisticated. So the simplicity of taking a photograph, what we can do is we understand who took a picture of what, where, and when. So that allows us to start identifying what are all of the objects and materials and brands that are littering our streets and our sidewalks and our beaches, our ocean. We're able to map every single item, and we're able to understand when those items are found. And so what we've done recently is start to integrate machine learning models into the application so that we can instantly identify what are the objects, materials, and brands. So maybe we're looking at very tiny sachets that the brand isn't immediately clear, or sometimes there's things that are a bit more recognizable, and we can understand those objects and materials,
Jeff,
even down to—
I can't see your screen. I guess you're sharing your presentation?
I am.
Okay.
And it's not. Let's try that again.
I see your—
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Thank you.
How about now?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, we see it now. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
One of the greatest things about technology is that oftentimes it doesn't work the way you think it would work. And I think when you're trying to battle some of these big complex problems, that happens more often than not. So forgive me, let me start over. My name is Jeff Kirschner, and I'm the founder and CEO at Litterati. And we are a global litter intelligence platform. And it's a platform that's powered by people. The way it works is very simple. We start with a photograph, an iOS, Android application that anybody can download and instantly join this community and become part of the solution. And what that photograph allows us to do is understand who picked up what, where, and when. And that data serves as the foundation of the information that we're collecting. We're able to understand what are the objects, materials, and brands, where is everything found, when are these items being picked up. And we've recently started to integrate machine learning models, artificial intelligence that identifies this object, material, and brand so that the minute the individual in the community snaps a photograph, we can see things like that's a plastic sachet that might be unbranded, or more recognizable items, or even down to a cigarette butt. We take that information and we feed it into a database and start to perform certain analytics on top of it. And this is where the sophistication comes in, because once you take a crowdsourced group of photographs and begin to put predictive intelligence on top of it, it really allows you to start to take action. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all about. While the data is important and the technology is critical, it's really about what changes in the system can we see. So who uses our service? Right now it's cities, brands, schools, and NGOs. They all subscribe to the platform really to engage their own communities and access the data. And this is what it's all about. It's about this community-generated data, which allows us to really do three things to reach our mission of eradicating litter and identifying the world's waste. We call them the 3 Ps. It's about changing policy, influencing packaging, and inspiring personal responsibility. So let me give you a couple of examples of these changes that have occurred as a result of the community. The first one was arguably the one that inspired me the most because it happened because of a bunch of 5th graders. So in Modesto, California, a group of 5th graders came together and they used Litterati to pick up 1,247 pieces of litter just on their schoolyard. And they learned from the data that the most common type of litter were the plastic wrappers from straws in the cafeteria. So these students went to their principal and just said, why are we even buying straws? And they stopped. And individually, they learned that they could make a difference, but together, that's really where they created an impact. And that is just a simple yet effective change that happened. Really, it was one of the first stories of impact we ever saw. And it, for us, was really a light bulb moment that demonstrated the power of the data. This happened just this last week. So in the Netherlands, the Dutch Litterati community started noticing these plastic wrappers made from a company called Pervasco. The brand is ANTAFLU. And they picked up tens of thousands of these ANTAFLU plastic wrappers. They took the data to the company, and the CEO, to his credit, said, all right, I'm gonna change the supply chain. And just this week, the paper ANTAFLU model has now hit store shelves. And you can only imagine the excitement that that has generated in Holland, because these people have seen that the action they took together has actually led to a massive difference that is going to protect the Dutch grounds going forward. That same community started looking at KNETTERBALS, which is a golf ball sized plastic firework. And you can imagine when these things explode, plastic fragments end up all over the ground. So they picked up, now it's over 60,000 KNETTERBALS, and they took this data to the leading retailers. And the leading retailers have stopped selling these plastic fireworks as a result of the Litterati community in Holland. Yet one more example of a story of impact. And then finally, in San Francisco, our data was used to help understand what the percentage of cigarette litter was. So the reason the city wanted this data was to create a tax on all cigarette sales. And so long before Litterati existed, they had empowered people with pencils and clipboards. And they came up with a number, and that number led to a 20-cent tax. Well, then the city got sued by the tobacco industry, who claimed that their methodology didn't have any precision, and it certainly wasn't provable. Because everything we do is photograph, there's evidence, our data was used to not only defend, but double that tax, and it generates approximately $4 million a year in annual recurring revenue, all for the city to clean itself up. We've got a bunch of really amazing commercial partners, and 2019 for us was a year of customer discovery. And what we learned was that we're getting quite a bit of traction with schools, because they are using Litterati as a STEM-based platform that can help kids become more data literate, using mobile phones for a community service program. We're working with a number of NGOs who are already out there cleaning the planet. We're just giving them the ability to do so with more efficiency and put a lot more power to collecting data. We've worked with a number of corporates. We were just a member of the Plug and Play and Alliance to End Plastic Waste Sustainability Accelerator, which has been a tremendous opportunity for us. And finally, cities. And for us, from a business model perspective, cities is really where the long-term opportunity exists. And the reason is simple. They feel the pain. They pay for waste, and they pay for litter prevention. And so we see that as not only a model that repeats, but it's one that's scalable. Our team is located all throughout the world, from Cambridge, Massachusetts to Chicago, Illinois, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Madrid, Spain, Doha, Qatar. And it's been interesting to build a team that way, because this problem is universal, and our team is able to address the problem in different cultures as a result of that. We have raised $1.4 million to date from some leading angel investors in Silicon Valley, as well as the National Science Foundation. And we are closing our seed round now, raising $1 million. And interestingly, the National Science Foundation will put an additional $500,000 in non-dilutive capital upon that raise. We've got a whole planet to clean. And for us, it doesn't matter if you're a student or a scientist. Litterati is a community for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate your time. It is an amazing application. I highly recommend it. I have no questions from the audience, but feel free to ask questions. I do have a question on my end. I know, and because I went with Plug and Play, I know that you've been working with a lot of corporations. Do you think you could give an example on how you've been working with corporations and how they can help collaboratively towards the cause?
Sure. So there are some organizations that you can imagine are in the waste industry. And one of the key components of the waste industry beyond collection is identification. And so because we are building machine learning models that get down to the most granular level of data, the brand and the object and material at the most, we like to say it's a forensic level of analysis, we're able to help them potentially identify really what's coming into the waste stream, because waste streams are becoming contaminated and those companies need them to be pure because that's where value is. And so we're in some discussions with waste companies to help there. We've also worked with a number of corporations around corporate social responsibility, and it starts with employee engagement. At the end of the day, Litterati is really about changing behavior. And one place that corporations are able to help out with that is by getting all of their employees to contribute to a greater good, and then use that as not only a team building exercise, but one that can demonstrate to their customers, their community, their constituents, look at the impact that we're creating.
We do have a few more questions all of a sudden from the audience. Thank you for that. We won't be able to answer all of them right now, so you will be able to type them later. The first one is from Benjamin. Have you worked with brands to develop labeling technology that will enable better, faster, more accurate recognition?
Yeah, that's a great question from Ben. We have. And we right now are working with several organizations about building. So we've built a taxonomy around this object, material, brand, and it all ladders up to different categories, right? And you can imagine that's incredibly complicated when you're dealing with different languages, and what, Danae, what you call a straw might be different than what somebody else calls a straw. And somebody might say this brand is Coke, and somebody else might say this is Coca-Cola. So it's about consistency. One of the biggest issues with data, and Ben, hopefully this dovetails into your question, one of the biggest issues with labeling data is we need to have consistent, comparable data sets, because that gives us baseline metrics. And if we're really going to solve a problem, that level of diagnostics has to occur. We have to understand where we are and how we're comparing a street in Manhattan to one in Manila. And how do you compare a street in Manila that you might have started a campaign with? How do you compare the efficacy of one campaign versus another? Is that street more clean or less clean after we've taken certain action? So labeling and working with third-party labeling organizations is a critical component to creating a consistent, comparable data set.
No, that makes sense. Thank you. We have time for one more question, even though you have a few more. So Tom is asking, what is the motivation for end users? Just like to clean up the planet, yeah.
That is the question that we ask ourselves probably every day. So, yeah. So I'll keep this brief because we could get into a long one about engagement and gamification technique. But today, let's look at it on a continuum. Today, the Litterati community is purely motivated by the intrinsic reward for contributing to a healthy, clean planet. We do have a leaderboard in the application, and so there's a little bit of that competition that goes back and forth, and there are some people who pick up hundreds, even over 1,000 pieces daily. But it's really the intrinsic reward that people are feeling. If you consider that step one on that continuum, step two, we look at a lot to unlock more of a mass market opportunity, right? Because we know some people in the world require a level of incentive, reward, and recognition. And so what we are beginning to experiment with are things like points and badges, right? Does that drive enough motivation to get somebody to pick something up? Where this goes on step three is actual capital. So we believe there's an opportunity, much like Peter discussed, to build a two-sided marketplace. And on the one side, you have cities and NGOs and others who want data and clean communities. And on the other side, so that's the demand side, the demand side. And on the other side, the supply side, you have individuals who are certified and validated Litterati researchers who are actually beginning to be compensated to do that work. So it's early days for us, but we do see that as an opportunity to increase engagement.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. You do have a few more questions, so if you can type the answers, and we will get back at the end also if there's any answers that couldn't be answered.
Of course.
Questions that couldn't be answered. Thank you so much, Jeff.